Okay, I think we're ready to get going. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Daniels. I'm the Communications Director for the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation. Thank you all for joining us this evening on our 2025 Cherry Blossom Season Operational Planning Meeting. This meeting is sort of an offshoot of one that we actually did last year with a community working group discussing preparations for the cherry blossom season, which, as we all know, we see a large influx of foot traffic to the island, drawn in large part by the blooming of the cherry blossoms on the western and eastern ends, but also just with the warmer weather, we see more folks visiting and enjoying our island. So we make sure that we are prepared for it in myriad ways ahead of time, and so that's kind of what we wanted to use this meeting to outline some of those preparations. Gather some feedback from folks. If you have any suggestions operationally, we're happy to take them and see what we can do. But largely, we just wanted to communicate a lot of the things that we're working on and will be doing throughout the month of April, especially when we see the heaviest influx of traffic. Before we get into it, I just want to mention a couple of my colleagues from the corporation. We're joined by our Chief Operating Officer, Mary Canine, our PSD Chief, Kevin Brown, Deputy Chief Anthony Amoroso. We're also joined by Juji Perez, Meg McCabe from RIOC, Darren McCarthy from POMA, and I see a couple of board members here, Faye Christian, and I think I saw Dr. Melamed as well. So welcome, everybody. And with that, I will turn it over to our COO, Mary Canine, to go through the slide deck we have.
Great. Thank you, Brian, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming together on a Tuesday night. Not April Fools. Cherry blossom season is here. I can't believe we're already in April. It seems like the year's just flying by, but here we are. So we'll get started going over some operational adjustments that we're going to make. Meg, if you go to the next slide. So as we all know, the cherry blossom trees that line the perimeter of the island, especially those that are along the West Esplanade near Cornell Tech, are some of the most highly sought after cherry trees to take pictures under and with. They have a beautiful backdrop, not only of Manhattan, but also of the island as well. And we're anticipating to have a large amount of visitors to the island in April and likely through the month of May. Our communications team has done a good job of putting together several updates that will continue to go out throughout cherry blossom season. There also have been posters circulated on the island that are at our bus stops, I believe at our community centers, a cultural center, Good Shepherd Plaza, I think at the senior center as well. So we'll continue to make sure that those are posted and visible for anyone to see so that everyone can prepare for potentially having more congestion down towards the transportation area. And also, if you have not already signed up for the RIOC advisory system, I would recommend that folks do sign up for that so that everyone can get advisories as they come in. I just saw something in the chat. Is everyone able to see the presentation? Yeah, okay. And just so you know, after we finish here today, we're going to post this on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see this as well. We do not currently have any hosted or planned events during this time period, specifically because we know that it's going to be a highly visited time of year, and we didn't want to add to the congestion that normally occurs during this time. Right, next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Brown and Deputy Chief Amoroso, who are going to touch on some of our public safety department procedures that'll go into place during this time of year.
Good evening. Welcome. Hello to all. I'm Chief Kevin Brown from Roosevelt Island Public Safety Department. And we are prepared, as we have been prepared in the last few years, for our cherry blossom season. Our main focus, where we have to shift our personnel, is getting on and off the island. That's the transportation hubs, which includes the tram at this time. So what we plan to do at the tram is station 3 to 4 officers every Saturday and Sunday, and during the spring break week of when kids are out of school, so that if there is an overwhelming population of visitors at the tram, that we will be prepared and we will keep the tram safe. We'll also have an officer at the subway system to just monitor and see if there are crowds gathering at the subway system. And we will have additional officers in the park areas and around Cornell Tech area. One thing that we saw that we had to do a better job is keeping the traffic moving around Cornell Tech. So we will have our regular patrol out there, making sure that the traffic and that there's no double parking, no illegally parked cars along the Cornell Loop, because that will then bottle up and cause congestion down in that area. So we will focus mainly on the traffic, the transportation, and keeping everyone safe on the island throughout the cherry blossom season. Can you hear me?
Thanks, Chief. Next
Yes.
slide.
Hello, this is Judy. Can you hear me? It's Judy Birdie.
Hey, Judy, we could hear you. I forgot to mention this at the top of the call. If we can we'll go through the deck, and then if we could save the questions for the end, and we'll just go through everything then, that would be great.
As I just said previously on this slide, we'll have extra patrol out. We'll have minimum 6 additional officers, which will supplement our regular patrol on the island, and those officers will cover the transportation, which is the tram, the subway, and down near the Cornell Tech Loop.
And just
I have a
before we go on, Kevin, can you talk a little bit about conversations you've had with the 114 and New York State Emergency Management?
Well, thank you. Sorry, I skipped over that. But the 114 they will have their patrols will cover the island also. They won't be stationed on the island, but they have been notified that we are in the cherry blossom season, and they will have officers who will be able to respond here very quickly. And in addition to that, the New York City Emergency Management, they have been notified of our cherry blossom season, and they will monitor us. And if we are in need of additional resources, they will be ready to supply us resources at a moment's notice.
Great, thank you for that, Kevin. Okay, I'm going to touch on a few of the transportation adjustments that'll be made during this season. Meg, if you can go to the next slide. So our red bus service for the weekends will continue with 2 red buses on the island. We're also going to run a temporary weekend shuttle that'll run from the Roosevelt Island tram station to the Manhattan tram station. This will run from 11 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. During April weekends, and that'll likely extend into May as well. It'll depart from the Roosevelt Island tramway. The location on the Manhattan side has shifted slightly. It's actually a little bit closer to the tram. It'll depart from 60th Street and 2nd Avenue on the half hour. And we're going to have signage posted at that location, and the PSC officers will also communicate that option to anyone that would like to take the shuttle instead of waiting for the tram if there is a line. As we know, going over the bridge there may be traffic. Some of the times may be shifted slightly. However, we're going to do our best to try and stay on schedule as much as possible. Okay, next slide. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Darren from Leitner Poma. He's going to talk a little bit about the cabin attendance, the station attendance, and kind of what Poma is going to be doing during these couple months.
Thank you, Mary, and good evening, everyone. So what we're going to be doing in the next, all the way through April, we're going to have additional staff assisting PSD and crowd control on the Manhattan side. that person and persons will work with anybody that has any questions regarding the MTA or how to use the MTA card or the Omni card or any other type of, the Omni Pass, or their credit card, and how to use that to get through pretty quickly. So we'll have somebody stationed, the actual station attendant will be stationed at the turnstile, so we don't have any backup with anybody causing any congestion there throughout the day. Same goes for the Roosevelt Island side, but the Roosevelt Island side is managed a little bit better as far as because it has a little bit more real estate to manage the crowds because they'll go down the ramp. So working with PSD, we'll be able to get the crowd through and up into the platform area as quickly as we can and safely. Once on the tram, our cabin attendants will make their general announcements. They'll tell everybody on board to be safe and to let the priority seating to the elderly or handicapped that need to have a seat on the tram. And as when they exit the tram, watch their step was going to come out. So then on the Roosevelt Island side, I do have mechanics throughout the day that if they come available and we do see that there's a large crowd that coming, I can send mechanics on either side to help with the crowd control or an assist on either side of the island, either on Manhattan side or on Roosevelt Island side. So we expected the crowds to be similar to or just maybe a little bit greater than we did last year. Being that the weather is going to be rainy this coming weekend, kind of give us a good prep on what we're going to see as coming weekends as they come. I think the extra staff is going to be really helpful. And as we go through April and we're going to see if we need to continue that in May, we will. We've done a lot of readiness on our end, but making sure that there's no disruption as far as the tram goes or as maintenance goes. So our maintenance is all caught up. So on the weekends, you're going to be seeing both trams run, and it's going to be 7.5 minutes on each tram. As as a department, it'll be 4 minutes and 20 seconds to cross the river as people board the tram and as the tram takes off and departs. So we're looking for anything that's out of the ordinary between now and this weekend that would inhibit us from making things work very quickly and easily and without any type of problems. So I'm not expecting anything else to happen. And so I think we're going to have a good season.
Thank you, Darren. And just to add to that, we've added another camera to the live stream at the Manhattan station. This camera faces south. This camera faces north, looking at the turnstiles and the MTA area, the MetroCard area. So that should help with providing some visibility for those that would like to use the live stream to find out what the crowding looks like over there before they make their choices of travel. Next slide. So cherry tree maintenance and care. Our grounds team performed vertical mulching recently to the cherry blossom trees along the West Esplanade, as well as other cherry trees located on the island to really help improve the soil content that's around the cherry trees to stay and grow healthy. We know that a lot of folks like to hang on the branches, so we're posting signage in the area. There's also pamphlets that we're going to be handing out to protect the cherry blossom trees. We'd like to see them here for, another 50 years and continue to grow big and strong. So we're going to continue to try and motivate people to care for the cherry blossom trees while they're taking their pictures or walking around the area. So we're hoping that will greatly help out the overall landscape of the island. Okay, next slide. Additionally, restrooms, always something that's needed when crowds start to appear. So we have additional restrooms that'll be put in the meditation steps near Firefighters Field and along West Loop Road. They should be in place this week in preparation for this weekend. And then, of course, if there's any other additional information or if you've missed anything today, please check out the Cherry Blossom Weekend Safety Plan that is on our website for all the details related to cherry blossom season. I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you, Mary. So thanks, everybody. Happy to take some questions from folks. If you just want to use the raise hand function, we'll call on you. I just want to also very quickly touch on the communications end of it. So as Mary noted, we sent out the annual travel advisory last week, explaining all of the different services and adjustments that we're making in terms of transportation particularly. You can see on this slide here, we have the Protect the Cherry Blossoms palm cards that we've made, and we are going to be sharing them. I believe we've already shared them, Judy, with you at the kiosk. If we haven't already, then we'll make sure that there's a stack there for the visitors. And we're going to just make sure that we're continuing to do what we can to over-communicate a lot of the things that are going on. So with that, let me take some of the questions we have. I will start with Frank Ferrance. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Frank.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for the good plan. Having seen a good number of them and the ups and downs over the years, I appreciate that that you've done a good job planning here. A lot of things that are worked out, and like the stuff information on the screen, like dealing with portable restrooms and such. So if I can make in light of everything, looking like a good plan, here are two suggestions. So suggestion number one is on signage. I request that you have some signage that has where to call PSD, your transportation options, okay, and the locations of the restrooms, and put that on the kiosks or on the fences, on the seawall there, because those will be some of the more, and then also add the things, please don't hang on the cherry blossom trees. But transportation options are pretty important when people see a big line, and then don't realize that, maybe the F train is an option or the ferry is an option, or the Q102 bus, is an option. I think that what that does is then from a public safety perspective, again, I'm not the public safety expert, public safety is, but I would say it would help them because you're communicating information to the public, the users there, that they don't have to keep repeating. There can be, people can stare at that, look at that, and then it gives, the officers more time to direct, the things at hand. The second suggestion has to do with the traffic management on the west side. So I've driven around, over the years, when we have no particular event, but when people are there. So here are my recommendations for that, is that for Saturday and Sunday, pick a set of hours. Doesn't have to be, 10 to 8, but some daylight hours, maybe 10 to 4, something like that. There's no parking on a portion of the West Loop Road, probably most of it. And the reason for that is then you also want to, if you have those barrier gates or whatever, the problem is the crowds swell, by the trees and then come out into the road. So why not just close off, the parking, and then you take all the traffic, in the rightmost lane, and then you, by having the barrier, maybe you only have to do with a couple of barriers and cones all the way down, but at least that anticipates the crowd swelling, and I think that makes it safer, and also can be managed with fewer public safety officers, rather than having to put an officer every 100 feet or 200 feet to deal with crowds.
Thank you, Frank. We appreciate that. Very quickly, I'll just touch on the suggestions about signage, and they're good ones. I just want to mention that the digital kiosks we have at the tram station and at the other locations around the island do talk about alternative transportation modes. It has the schedules for the ferry. It has the schedules for the F train. You can scan QR codes on those for information there. Also, the flyers that we are putting out regarding the weekend shuttles, the QR code on those flyers and those signs link to the island-wide travel advisory that also goes into all the different transportation options available to folks. So we'll look for ways that we can enhance that further, but I just wanted to make mention that we have those little provisions in place.
Great. We're all brainstorming together. That was just, the purpose of my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Frank. And let's go to Judy.
Hi, well, it's nice to be back on the island. Well, I've been on the island for the last 3 weeks and been a Kohler. And gee, I've been missing all the fun. I haven't been to the kiosk since the beginning of March. I presume it's still there. My staff is there. Okay, a few things. Any posters you publish, put a set at the kiosk tomorrow. Bring them over, a set of any of the information posters. We can put them on our windows. My staff is there tomorrow. Barriers, please don't barrier off the kiosk so people can't get up the ramp. Don't put yellow barriers so people will not be able to get into the kiosk. We still need the business. And there are ways to do this, but in the past, especially the 4th of July, we've ended up being on an isolation island there. So you have to remind that we're still there and people have to have access inside to the kiosk. By the way, is the hot dog truck going to be here or not? Anyone know? The hot dog truck?
Not sure off the top of my head. I haven't seen it in a while.
I haven't seen it. Well, I haven't seen anything. But please, we don't need, please don't let any food vendors up there. The last thing we need. Secondly, extra trash cans around the bus stops and around the street, around the bus stop, down on the West Drive, because they get overwhelmed on just the regular weekends. So extra trash cans. Secondly, restroom service. You're only saying twice a week restrooms cleaning. If the weather gets hot, we need the restrooms cleaned every day because people will not use the porta sands if they stink. So, the minute the weather goes over 70 degrees, you have to have them serviced every day or every other day because people just refuse to use them, and I can't blame them. So we have to increase the restroom services. Whatever poem cards you have, give me copies of them, give my staff copies of them. Has the MTA sworn on a stack of Bibles that they will not have any shutdowns on these weekends, that they will not have any one-way service? Have you gotten any promises from the MTA that the subway will not be interfered with and we will not have to deal with one-way service?
We did check with the MTA. They did not have any scheduled service interruptions during the month of April.
Have you promised them? I hope so. What's the matter? It's so good to be back at work. So anyhow, but I'll be in touch with you. I might even take a bus ride and see the daffodils tomorrow. It's been rather encumbering. So I will be in touch with you, Brian. I'll be in touch with you, Kevin. And thank you, Mary, and everyone for doing this. I've been through many, many cherry blossoms, but it's just out of control. So I'm sure we're going to be fine. I'm sure everyone is going to behave. And we hope to have a nice April on Roosevelt Island. That's it from me.
Very good. Thank you, Judy. We appreciate it. Let's go to Chloe Larson. Chloe, you there? Chloe appears to be unmuted, but I can't hear her. Okay, Chloe, we'll circle back if we can figure out what's going on with the sound there. Let me go to Jennifer Engstler.
Hi, thanks for having this. It's been very informational. My suggestion, and perhaps maybe something for next year. I've lived on this island a long time. In the past 5, 6 years, it's just gotten so much worse. And it's great that there's going to be a lot of signage up and that you're giving out these cards for people to protect the cherry blossoms. But I was just wondering if it might be an idea to next year, like ask islanders if they want to volunteer to be something like a cherry blossom ranger, because you can have all the signs in the world, but people don't read them, or if they do read them, they don't care. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen people take pictures and they pull the branches down, they snap off they snap off flowers. I'm sure other people have seen it, and I just think it might be a nice idea to perhaps during daylight hours have like a sounds silly, but like a cherry blossom ranger to people just kind of hang out by the trees and just, if they monitor people, they see them wanting to take pictures and say, hey, instead of grabbing the tree branches, let me take a picture of you, or just kindly, gently remind people not to touch the trees. That is my idea. That's my suggestion.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, because I just don't, like I said, people, you can have a million signs up. People don't read them, or they just don't care. Someone needs to be there to enforce it, and maybe the public safety department or the police officers can help with that too.
Well, PSD is certainly monitoring that area, but they, like you mentioned, they can't be everywhere all at the same time. So that's an interesting idea. Would you like to be a cherry blossom ranger by any chance?
I certainly would, because
Okay.
it drives me crazy when I see people do that. Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
Frank would be happy too.
Okay.
Okay, great. We'll absolutely explore that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a
Thank
cool
you.
idea. I'll go to Margie. Oh no, Margie, can you hold on one second? Chloe
Sure.
said she figured out her
My mic.
sound issue. So let me just go to Chloe real quick. Chloe, you there? Perhaps we haven't figured it out quite yet. I'll come back to you, Chloe. Margie, you want to go ahead?
Okay, can you hear mine?
Yes.
You can. Okay. Kind of jumping off what Jennifer said, and maybe in addition to or instead of, have we thought about getting the CERT team to help? Because they're trained in crowd control, and if we don't have a full CERT team on the island, the OEM can ask the other ones in the areas, the CERT teams in Astoria and around there, to come on over on the weekends. Just a thought. It'll just help people for the control and also for the information giving.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Margie. I know that we attempted to engage the CERT team at one point last year through, I believe, our board member Howard Polvey had some connection there, and I don't know if they had the manpower for it or what the situation was, but it's certainly something that we can look into again.
Even if it's not a Roosevelt Island section of CERT, I mean, they called on us to hand out bottles of water during marathons and all that in other areas. So it would seem they'd want to chip in for something like this. Okay.
Yeah, it's certainly worth exploring again. So we can take that back and see what we can find out. Thanks, Margie. I see Chloe put her question in the tracker here. So asking if all the buses have tracking. Doesn't seem like they're all working. So to answer the question, no, all the buses do not have tracking yet, but I think we're getting pretty close to that. So I don't know if Mary, you wanted to touch on it, or Juji wants to touch on where we stand with the bus tracking.
As of right now, we currently have 4 buses with the tracking, and we are in contact with the vendor right now, which has given out some date of this in this month, hopefully, or by the end of this month and the beginning of next month, for us to get the remainder of the equipment for the missing buses that currently don't have it, which includes the 2 new buses and bus number 6 and the shuttle bus. And once those things come in, and we will be able to install them. Unfortunately, due to heavy delays on shipment and technological parts, it took them quite a while to be able to put these things together and get it to us, more than the last time. So it took quite some time.
Thank you, Juji. So we're continuing to work on it. I'm sure once the whole fleet is up and running, we'll see some better results for the transit app. So that's trending in the right direction. Let's go to Starlight. If you could unmute yourself.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And this is also, it's a question and kind of, well, I don't know, I guess it's a whole entire question. Um, I know everyone is focused on the south end of the island regarding the cherry blossoms, but what about on the east and west promenades coming back through the Wire and Northtown?
What
Who's
about
there
that in
to,
terms of?
who's, yeah, what about it in terms of the cherry blossoms that are back there?
So we have
Like-
always found that, the majority of the folks who are coming over to check out the cherry blossoms tend to stay towards the southern end of the island.
Right.
We obviously have them lining the rest of the island, and we are trying, I think, to get people to explore more of the island, including through those cherry blossom palm cards. I guess, probably PSD.
The
can
rest of
speak
it
to
will be
more
on this
quickly,
app.
more crowds in those areas.
Yeah, I definitely seen them
What? Watch, there's a
in
car.
prior years. I've seen them down on the, further down going north of the island,
Mhm.
coming north of the island. I've definitely seen a lot of tourists on the east promenade as well as the west promenade. So I'm just wondering, what are they going to do to handle the overflow for people who may already know the island that, come here that want to go further away from the crowds, meaning on the southern end. And also, um, just, I just was wondering if the Roosevelt Island signage, right, the big RI, I'm always seeing people standing and climbing on this to take photos, and I'm just wondering if that is just protocol. Is that something that they're allowed to do, or is this something they're just doing because, I don't know, like,
Well, I
I'm
don't
just
think we
curious.
want people climbing on it.
Well,
Kevin
I've
or Anthony, if you want
seen
to touch on that.
I've seen several tourists climbing on it, climbing inside of the letter, standing on top of it, doing all kinds of crazy to get photos and things of that nature. So, and also, like I said, when you're getting further back north of the island where the cherry blossoms are, people are swinging on the trees. They are pulling on the branches and snatching the blossoms off and things of that nature. So I'm just
Brian,
letting you know what I see when I'm,
Brian, PSD will pay special attention for on the north side, and we allow pictures at the RI, but obviously we don't let people unsafely climb on it. But we will monitor it because there'll be a PSD officer there. That condition will not happen.
Great. So we'll
Okay,
keep an
'cause I
eye
see
starlight on those conditional changes, and it will, if we see those larger crowds migrating north, we'll be able to respond to it.
okay.
Let's go to Rick.
Well, just piggybacking on what Starlight just said, the area in the Riverwalk Commons cherry blossoms and the cherry blossoms next to the Eleanor's Pier get a lot of people going there as well. So I would just suggest paying attention to that area as well. Particularly in the Commons, people are hanging on the trees and shaking the trees all the time. So just to be aware of that.
And I'll just add to that, Rick. Not only will we have our detail out, but we'll also have our regular patrol units out. That's out on a regular basis. So PSD will be monitoring all of it.
Okay, great. And also on the shuttle bus to Manhattan, now, is that the mini shuttle bus or is that the red bus? Because have you changed your minds about that? Because there have been a lot of people saying that's very difficult getting into the mini bus. For older people.
Yeah. The reason we're going with the minibus is a few factors, and I think I outlined this in one of the responses that we had to an inquiry about it. The first is that generally speaking, ridership on the for the shuttle service never exceeds what the minibus can handle. The other thing to keep in mind with the minibus is it's smaller and easier maneuver for our drivers around Queens and Manhattan. It's especially difficult with all the road work that's going on just off the island outside of Queens. So the minibus allows us to meet the needs, generally speaking, of the shuttle service. It also allows us to reduce wear and tear on the red buses which is something that I think we need to be thoughtful about moving forward. We got the fleet into better shape. Service is a lot better than it was just 6 months ago. But if you do the same things, well, longer than 6 months ago, but if you go back to sort of abusing the buses in the way that they had been done before, we're kind of asking for trouble. So I think one thing, Mary, we talked about this internally too. The possibility if we also have the Rita bus available to us, so perhaps if that's better for folks, we can explore that. But right now, it makes the most sense to use the shuttle bus for this service.
And does that bus have the tracking ability?
Not yet, but that's one of the ones that we'll be getting it in the coming weeks that Juji had mentioned.
Okay. And can you
Hi,
talk a
this
little
is
bit?
Holly Berger. I'd like to make one comment about using the minibus. I've taken advantage of the red bus on the Big Island when it comes over to the Big Island, and it's been great. And I've seen that it really isn't used to the degree that it should be. But I'm only concerned that if you've changed the spot where it stops and it's now going to be closer to the tram, that more people will see it and possibly take advantage of it. And then you might have overfill on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing we're going to have to track one way or the other. We always track the ridership of these shuttles. I mean, that's how we knew that it was never particularly high on the red bus when we were sending that over. I think, we'll see how it goes. By and large, the data that we have from last year shows that the ridership would be sufficiently handled by the minibus. If the change of location changes that, we'll have to sort of wait and see on it. But for right now, the sensible thing is to use the minibus for this service, and hopefully we'll see how it goes.
Also, Brian, piggybacking off of you on that question, remember that we will have signage there as well on the exits, distributing, showing where the shuttle bus will be located at, so people can know where to direct themselves.
Right.
And
Thank
also,
you.
and can you talk a little bit about the tram lines, how PSD is going to handle the tram lines on the platform, as well as when lines go down into the plaza area and the use of the elevator by people?
Well, Rick, I think that you've heard us talk about this a few times. One of the things
Yeah.
that we came up with is that we're only going to allow 50 passengers on the platform at a time, and everyone else would have to wait downstairs off the stairwell and in that plaza area. Once those 50 people board the tram or begin boarding, then we will let up another 50, and they will make up the riders that will be then taken to Roosevelt Island. In the waiting area, again, we'll only have 50 passengers, and we'll keep everyone downstairs. Now, if anyone wants, and this has come up a few times, we are here to accommodate people who need the elevator, who are, some people call them, elderly or disabled. But I would say there are some people who are older who just, they don't mind waiting on the line. They don't go to the front of the line. They don't ask for assistance. But if anybody comes to PSD and asks for assistance, they will be accommodated.
And just one
And
final question. I'm sorry.
If I just real quick, Rick, just to clarify, the instance where we're talking about limiting the amount of passengers waiting on the platform, those are only the instances where lines have formed. So,
Right. I just asked here again because people may just watch this and haven't seen previous times that Kevin has talked about this.
sure.
And just finally, in just terms of getting the message out, is RIOC doing anything to encourage people to take the subway here? Talking about tourists coming for the cherry blossoms rather than taking the tram?
Well, I can tell you we're not promoting the tram in any meaningful way. I'm open to ideas about promoting subway travel for off-island folks. I'm not exactly sure what it necessarily would look like, but if you have some suggestions, Rick, I'm happy to talk about it.
I guess we'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
Glad you're
Okay,
open
thanks.
to it.
Thanks, Rick. I'm going to go to, we have some raised hands, but it's some folks who have asked questions already. So Dr. Melamed, you haven't spoken yet. You want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, thanks. So just a couple of questions. I mean, just to your last point, it seems like if there's a long line at the tram, even if not, we could make a sign at the bottom of the stairs somewhere that says, alternate ways of getting to Roosevelt Island, and, point to 63rd and 3rd, and various other ways of getting there. I had a question, and I think that this was sort of spoken about, but I think one of my main concerns in talking to my mother is once you're on the platform, getting people who are elderly to either board first somehow or get to the seats. I think that people are sort of left on their own to navigate that. And that I think is a major concern when there's so many people there. And then my last question, and then you guys can answer, is who from RIOC is going to be sort of monitoring the situations on those weekends, and will there be flexibility if there's a lot of people trying to take the shuttle? Can the next one be a red bus? To how much flexibility do we have, and are there people who are going to be monitoring that?
So in terms of monitoring the tram situation, PSD does that all the time, and especially so on the weekends that we have enhanced ridership. They're always sending emails to us just about conditional updates at the tram stations. The shuttles, we'll monitor that as well. We keep track of ridership all the time. So if it looks like there's an overflow, we'll at least know about it. I'm not entirely sure. Again, being thoughtful about red bus usage is something we really have to be doing, especially if a couple of buses will be doing the midlife overhauls soon. So the priority has to remain service on Roosevelt Island. But we'll keep an eye on it, and if there is some operational adjustment that makes sense, I'm sure we'll be happy to explore it. But I mean, let's see how the shuttle works right now with the smaller bus, and we can kind of go from there, I think. And then one other thing I'll touch on very quickly about priority seating on the tram. We are engaging. I don't have a timeline for it yet, so I was kind of hesitant to bring it up, but we are working on getting some translation services done in some very popular foreign languages, reminding folks about priority seating for elderly and disabled riders, and then we'll be able to turn that into some signage that we can have at the station. I don't exactly know how long that's going to take, but it is something that we are working on and trying to enhance as well. Did I get everything, Doctor, or did I miss one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, signage is one thing, but, you have to see the sign, and if the sign is in the tram, then I don't know. It's, I think just helping people to get on the tram if they need it. That's the
idea on the translation end would be before you board, we'll have this sort of out there. And we have had that in the past. We've had signage, but it was entirely in English about priority boarding, and that's great, but we do have a lot of foreign speaking riders. And so we thought, if we could sort of expand it the way we're communicating, that would probably be helpful. And then I know that Darren had mentioned that, the tram cabin attendants will be making their announcements too.
Right. Can the POMA workers, like if they see somebody who looks like they need help, can they help them push through the crowd?
Oh, absolutely. We will assist in any way we can. As mentioned earlier in the call, that there will be on the Manhattan side, there'll be 50 folks on the platform area. So that'll reduce that type of congestion. And Chief Brown had mentioned that earlier. And the crowd going down the stairs will be at a limit. On the Roosevelt Island side, I will have any additional staff on that would assist, I'll have my folks out there assisting as much as we can. If I see any overcrowding or anything like that going on the Roosevelt Island side, we'll assist anybody that needs it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Faye, would you like to go?
Here we go. I'm with Dr. Melamy about the having someone assist the seniors. I think we really have to tell the employees that in the public safety to go over to the seniors and walk them to and past other people, because otherwise they're going to stand back. They don't really walk up, especially when they're frail. They're afraid of being knocked over or whatever. But I think if we ask the cabin people to come out if they have to, but they have to stay on. But the ones on the platform can definitely walk over, public safety, taking the senior citizen, walk them through the crowd and help them to get on that, get on prior before the other people get on. Of course, if it's not going to be too tight if there's only 50 people on the platform. So I have seen the some of the Puma people are inside of the cabin and they're not out helping anyone get onto the tram. And they need to look, observe the platform, observe for the senior citizen, help them get past people onto the cabin. And also, I think another way of getting the people to maybe take the subway would be best, especially on Roosevelt Island. I don't think they're going to take the suggestion as well from the Manhattan side. But from Roosevelt Island side, I think it would be easier to get people to take the subway because it's close by. There's a very close by distance. They don't have that far to walk. I think it would work best suggesting the subway on this side. But from what I remember, the subway has been pretty crowded also on some weekends, and I tend to stay away from the outside. I stay inside basically on those days. I think that was big. I really, I guess my most criticism, if I'm going to say criticism, is that I think definitely we need to just speak to the public safety and the tram platform young men to assist the senior citizen, help them get in front of people, that way. And if you don't understand English, it doesn't really matter, because if you see someone in uniform bringing somebody up front, especially if they're senior, you can, I think they can interpret that, if nothing else. And I also think they don't.
But we will try our best, and to assist these, especially the seniors and especially disabled on trying to make sure that they don't be inconvenienced on their ride over and back.
Yeah, well, and backpacks. I have a thing about backpacks. I think we would also have more room, and people would get less naughty with each other if they're not hit with these backpacks. So maybe we can ask them to remove them if they don't have a baby in arm.
Thanks, Faye. I appreciate that. I think it's a good idea about saving the signage about returning to Manhattan via the F train on the Roosevelt Island side. I think that makes some sense, and try, they want to take the ride over, but then they want to get back without having a crossing issue. Yeah, that's something we can keep in mind too. I also just want to clarify real quickly, and in case this wasn't clear, when we say 50 people on the platform, that doesn't mean only 50 people are riding back in the tram cabin. It means that we're loading those 50 people up, and then we're allowing more folks in so that the cabin will be full before departing. So we're not restricting the amount of people that are actually traveling in the tram at any given time. We're just limiting the amount of folks that are standing on the platform. Lydia, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. All right, so let's see. Should I turn my camera on? Nobody wants to see me. That's fine. So, my concern, and I am actually addressing something that Faye just said, and the reason I'm addressing it is because my daughter had this issue. My daughter, when she was a teenager, she experienced when she had her backpack off, then she would get groped inside the tram. So she deliberately kept her backpack on to deter people from groping her. So that's my only concern. If we could have signage, I know that in the subways now they have announcements if they think that women or anybody else think that they're being inappropriately touched or sexualized or sexually, that they need to report it. And so I don't know if we need to go that route, because I don't think it's any more appropriate for girls to be inappropriately touched on the subway than it is on the tram.
Let me touch base on that one, Brian and Chief Brown. So we have radios on board. And if anything, anything like that happens on the tram and I have not heard of this personally happening, but if it does happen, I do apologize and we will act on it. We radio, our cabin attendants will radio across to either Roosevelt Island side or onto the Manhattan side and let them know what's going on. Okay. And we will contact PSD immediately over the radio, and said person can point out anybody that's been inappropriate and before the cabin even lands. And we will do our best before PSD arrives to stay with the person. Number one, the victim, and two, I'll have try to separate the other and get a great description of the person that was the perpetrator. So
And as you say that, Darren, that has happened in the past where something happened on the ride over from Manhattan, and they radioed to PSD and they were waiting for them when they got off the tram on our side. So like you said, if your guys see anything like that, they can't go anywhere. They have to take the ride over to Roosevelt Island, and we are usually there waiting for them. So I thank you for that too, Darren.
And you guys are very fast when something like that happens. You're quick.
That's great, but I just want to say that it's still the same as the girls may not say anything because they don't want to draw any attention to themselves. So it might be something that we need to encourage potential victims, that if they do feel like they've been violated, that they need to say something.
Yes.
Understood. We can look into that signage you mentioned in the subway systems, Lydia.
Well, it's actually a public announcement. They actually say in the trains, if you feel like you've been inappropriately touched or anything, there's a whole. You could reach out to the MTA and see what their language is. So
yeah, we've done that before, so that's something we can explore as well. I know we're coming up on time here. We've only got a couple minutes left, so
okay.
I just want to make sure we get everybody. If you haven't asked a question yet, now's the time. And if not, we got, if Judy, you want to ask one more thing?
Yes. Well, also on the week of April 14th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days of Passover. And during those weeks, we get extra visitors with lots of kids. And so I just want you to know that April 14th to April 18th, not only will we have cherry blossom visitors, we'll have the Passover visitors, and they usually come by the hundreds. And so just one more thing to be aware of.
We had spoke about that earlier, that we're going to have extra
well, I'm
patrol
sorry.
out there. And plus they're going to, the schools are on spring break.
Right, I know, but when you come with your family of 10 kids, it's very hard to contain this. And so, also, the bus, is it going to stop on Second Avenue at the M15 bus stop between 60th and 61st, north of the tram?
Yeah, that's exactly where we will be stopping.
Okay, so if it's at the M15 bus stop on the next block, people know where to stop. Okay.
Yeah. And we will have
There's
signage posted there at the bus
Okay,
stop
so it's
for
at
the
that,
shuttle bus.
okay, so it's north. Okay,
Mhm.
the bench on the platform. There's a bench for people to sit on the platform. A big sign in back of that bench, seniors and disabled only, because that infuriates me when people just lie all over the bench and the seniors and disabled are waiting for the tram. That in back of that one bench needs a big sign. You know, as someone who's newly encumbered, we need a place to sit. And also, one thing that Starlight mentioned, it would be great to have cherry blossom rangers. It would be great to put some teenagers and young people from the island in pink vests, very inexpensive, and put them out by the trees and let them give out the poem cards and let them be there, socialize with the visitors and do community service. It's a great thing. And when people see a young volunteer wearing a pretty pink cherry blossom vest, they may pay more attention than just the poem card. And it would be a really easy thing to recruit our teenagers and kids, especially they're going to be on spring break. They can get school credit, and it would be fun for them to be out there helping the visitors, because everyone has suggestions, but no one actually comes forth and does it. And it's about time that our neighbors who complain so much put on a vest and assisted the visitors, because I find that I'm very good. Everyone's good with suggestions, but I want everyone out there, like the visitor center people. We're there every single day, and we know what goes on. The red RI sign is treacherous. There are people crawling all over it every single day, on the top of it, on the sides of it, in between the letters. It's amazing that no one's been injured yet. But the top of that sign, it's just treacherous. And why it's permitted to be there is beyond me. But Amoroso, I could take hundreds of pictures of people risking their lives to take a selfie or a picture up there. And personally, I would barrier it off because it's treacherous and people don't respect it. And until someone gets injured, it's just going to sit there and being a living obstacle. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Judy. And we like that ranger idea too. And it's something I think
It's a great, and it's something we can easily arrange. I mean, you can talk to the kids, you can talk to PTA, you can talk to the Historical Society will get you pink vests. And, make it fun. Make the kids here think it's part of their community. This is community service. We don't need public safety doing everything. We don't need CERT. We have thousands of kids living on this island, and they'd love to participate and get community service for the school. And let's involve the community. Why do we only have to involve RIOC and POMA and the paid staff? There are 14,000 people here. And I really think we should hit up on the schools, hit up on the kids, get the teenagers, and we can find a fun way for them to spend their spring break. That's it.
Thank you, Judy. So we're at 7 o'clock now. I think we're going to call it. I just want to thank everybody for hopping on the call. Hopefully it's been informative. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email us, info@rioc.ny.gov. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time and have a good evening.
Thank you, Brian. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Brian.
Everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Have a good evening.
Thanks for having this.